welcome to the SIR podcast. This is Tony Cañas of Insurance Nerds, Profiles in Risk, and host of the SIR podcast. Today I have with me Lorrin Rondeau, Executive Product Manager at Markel. Lorrin, how's it going today?
Doing well. How about you, Tony?
I am doing well, thank you. Markel, I am somewhat familiar, but for any listeners that might not be, where in the industry does Markel play?
Sure. So Markel is traditionally more of a specialty lines insurer. So think kind of unique, maybe non-standard risks, creative placements, that type of thing. And they're really big in the commercial space historically, but we are also growing on the personal line side a ton. And so that's where I sit. I work in the personal lines product management team within Markel.
And they're based out of Richmond, Virginia, right?
Based out of Richmond, yep. Actually, most of the folks I work with on the personal lines team are based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I sit in our New York office, and there's a bunch of different people across all segments in here too.
All right.
Yeah.
So what exactly is a product manager within the world of insurance?
Yeah, it's interesting because when a lot of people hear product manager, they think kind of the more traditional tech focused role, right? And we do some of that, but product management, we get to wear a lot of different hats. It spans a ton of different areas. So at its core, it's really taking, a book of business, a line of business, a region, anything like that, and kind of monitoring profitability of the product, and then working with teams across the org to make sure that we're making any changes to meet, customer demand, keep up with the market, things like that. So it's a mix of, forms work, actuarial studies, making sure we're priced appropriately, and then just generally monitoring kind of the health of the book of business, if that makes sense.
But no, you don't have to be an actuary right now.
You do not, no. Thankfully, you don't.
Plenty of people who took some of the actuarial tests but didn't
Yeah,
end up in product. It's kind of an natural
definitely.
transition. But
Yeah, it's a pretty analytical role, right? A lot of times. And so you get folks that maybe are on the actuarial side and kind of broaden or go a little bit more high level into product because we do work heavily with actuarial teams. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of overlap. We also have someone within our team who does a lot of risk modeling and kind of more traditional actuarial studies. So it's a nice asset to have people with that background as well. And we also collaborate with that team a ton too, day to day.
yeah. So how is risk research involved in your role in product?
Yeah, so it's a lot of competitive research. That's probably the number one thing that we're looking at. There's a lot of reviewing state filings. So I should say my lines of business are admitted products, so they're regulated, right? I can go on and do filings research and kind of align with other companies often. And so that's a lot of the research that I'm doing is just taking a look at what changes other companies are making, whether that be, just rate changes, right? We see, depending on kind of the state of the market, we can see a lot of pricing increases depending on the business. But also looking at forms and coverages, endorsements, maybe how they're handling, emerging risks, that type of thing. So it's mostly on the competitive side. Otherwise, I would say marketplace research in general is big too, just kind of what's happening day to day, where is the industry headed? Are there areas where we can be a little bit more digital forward? Are there any gaps, ways that we can enhance our distribution, that type of thing. So.
And when you came into insurance, did you already have those research skills, or how did you learn them?
No, honestly, so when my first role in insurance was actually on the risk management side. So I was doing like home inspections and consultations for high net worth customers. So I got to
On
go
the
and do,
field?
yeah, out in the field, which was really fun, as you can imagine, in kind of the high net worth segment. I was going out and was really, the customer contact if they would get a policy with us. And so that was kind of my initial exposure. And then I did that for a couple, and then I shifted into product from there. And that was a huge change, right? Because initially I had started learning the business and kind of the risk management piece gave me really good exposure, more so on the underwriting side, right? But then going on the product side and you're seeing a ton of the internal workings and making tech changes, things like that. So I would say I wish that I was part of the SIR at that time when I first joined within the product team because I think it really would have helped me hone those skills. But I would say just over time, you kind of get familiar, excuse me, you learn the business and you just kind of try it yourself and see how it goes. But I definitely could have used some more training when I first started, that's for sure.
All right. How did you discover
Yeah.
SIR?
So I actually got connected to SIR through an old coworker of mine from that first position that I just mentioned in risk management, and he was working on the annual conference committee at the time. He was the chair, and so he brought me in to help out on the personal lines team within the annual conference committee. So that was my first introduction, and that was in 2022, I believe. And I've been involved with SIR since. So.
And you're still involved in the annual conference.
Yep, still involved in the annual conference, and then I recently joined the board as well.
And the strategic planning committee.
Yes, yep, exactly. That was also more recent with joining the board. So
So,
yeah.
Mike Koselmi, former president of the CPC Society and a mentor to many of us, describes himself as a habitual joiner. Uh, it looks like you kind of fit that mold of like just love joining the different committees.
Yeah, I joined the strategic planning committee just to get, I had only been a part of the annual conference committee, which is awesome and exposes me to a ton. But it's also very concentrated, right? It's kind of a build up to one point in the year. And honestly, the work goes kind of around the clock, right? With some small gaps. But strategic planning committee, I just wanted to get some additional exposure and see how I might be able to help out in other areas. So
Perfect.
yes.
So it's an interesting way to find this SIR because you work right in the in like the heart of what SIR is for, right? With heavy research. So it's interesting that you join for the conference committee.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was just kind of my way of going in, right? And the connection into it. I would say in my role in product management, we definitely do kind of the competitive research, but it's definitely not to the extent that a lot of other members of SIR and kind of the traditional core is doing. We don't really have a dedicated team for that. That just kind of is lumped in and part of the product management role, and that's a good fit. But I would say that's not necessarily the core of what I'm doing all the time, but it's an extremely crucial piece of it. So I think my goal recently within SIR is, how can I better maybe add value or support the network from a product management lens, right? Because that's not always there's a ton of overlap, but I would say product managers aren't always the target. It's more kind of that core research group, right? So how do we kind of expand and make sure the offering is suited to kind of the day-to-day roles of others that are pretty adjacent, right, and have overlap, but might not be the traditional core research team members, if that makes sense.
All right. What keeps you involved at SIR?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely the people, and then just the content and kind of the exposure that it provides. I think for me, I've always been involved in personal lines, and before joining Markel, I was always in kind of the high net worth personal lines space in product management, and then my role in risk management for a couple of years. And so I hadn't really seen much of commercial lines, life and health, other areas even of personal lines outside of that niche that I was in. So I think for me, SR was especially beneficial just because it gave me that exposure, right? And kind of that knowledge and those relationships outside of my area that I had been in, which was a little bit more specific. So I would say the people are amazing. The the data and the content and kind of the quality of the research and just um, presentations, everything that's part of it. I think the annual conference looped me in right away just because it's very intimate, right? And so you're seeing a lot of the same faces, and we tout that, right? That's kind of a huge part of the value prop is you're going to come to a conference and you're going to get really quality information and you're going to forge relationships that are strong, right? And you're going to come back and see these same people. And so I think that's certainly what's kept me coming back. Is just it's an awesome group of people to get to be a part of, and it takes me out of my kind of day-to-day job, right? And gives me a little bit something different and helps me develop within insurance. So
Yeah, it's an intimate and very, very friendly group, and the speakers are really, really, really good. So you feel that it's had a positive impact in your career?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely has. Not only just in my day-to-day life, right? There's so many resources available and just so much that I think about. Again, when I'm learning from a lot of people that are doing research a lot more often than I am, right? And they've really honed those skills. But I think it just has helped me in terms of strengthening my presence in the industry too, if you will, just because again, it gives me that exposure outside of what I'm doing. And I think that that's so beneficial just to interact with people who have different perspectives, different backgrounds. It just really enhances my current role. So it's been great.
Right. What advice do you have for people looking to come into insurance, and once they get started, what advice do you have to help them grow?
Oh, that's a great question. I think just be vulnerable and put yourself out there right from the beginning. I think for me, you come into a role and you think, okay, I should know some of these things or I should learn it or, but then I find myself, I'm 10 years into product management and I still am learning things every day and I'm still have so many questions, right? And I certainly don't, I know a very small piece of things just even in my experience. So I think just being a sponge and being open to learning about all areas of the industry, not necessarily just the one that you're working in, right? You never know what connections may come of that or what future opportunities may come of that. I think there's just so much that the industry has to offer that a lot of people don't necessarily realize. So just connecting with folks from other departments as well, I think is really important. That's been some of my most beneficial training and experiences, just learning from other people, whether it be talking to our customer service teams and what they're experiencing day to day, or learning from kind of the IT teams and what their experience is like. I think that's honestly been the most valuable thing that's made me better at my job because I can understand those different areas and perspectives.
All right. I see that you got your private risk management, CPRIA, and your
Yes.
AIDA, the Associate in Insurance Data Analytics. How do you
Yeah.
like those two designations?
Yeah, I liked both of them. They serve a different purpose. So the CPRIA designation was really focused on kind of enhancing my skills in the high net worth space. So prior roles that I had, and was some great learning about how to just interact with, agency partners, kind of what the expectations are for that area of the industry. And then the AIDA designation was great because it was a little bit more data focused. So when I first joined on the product side, as I mentioned, that's a key area. And so I just really wanted to kind of help advance my skills on the analytical side of things as well. So I think both are very different, but they definitely helped me in their own ways, if you will.
Are there any others you're aiming for?
Not currently. I've thought about doing the CPCU, and I know you have yours,
Deployment.
so I would be curious your thoughts. But
Oh, I'm a fanatic, and I
yeah,
point
okay.
everybody to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am thinking about that one, but I started in my role that I'm currently in about almost 2 years ago. And so I think now that I've settled in a little bit more and I'm more comfortable, maybe I'll start pursuing some more designations and education type stuff. But I've been in learning mode since I started that. So maybe the CPCO. Yeah.
Yeah, CPCU is a great investment. This is
Yeah. So you think it's still, I know a lot of people wonder whether it still holds value, right? Just kind of, it's been around for so long, and I think you would definitely
it
argue
opens
that,
a lot of
right?
doors. It definitely
Yeah.
opens a lot of doors.
Yeah.
Um, so this is my own curiosity, but you've worked at four radically different companies, right? I'm not familiar with Private Client Select, but Nationwide and AIG are radically different. And with Nationwide being your friendly Midwestern company, AIG being your you know like a publicly traded like New York type of culture.
Sure.
Uh, and then Markel being a smaller specialty carrier. Um, how do you navigate the very different cultures?
Yeah, honestly, I think I've gotten really lucky in that the people I've worked with have been amazing. So my current role that I'm in now, it was actually one of my old coworkers who let me know and kind of referred me over. And so I just, I felt an immediate cultural fit here, especially. Markel's a great company to work for, as are AIG and Nationwide. I think within the teams themselves, we had our own culture that had a lot of similarities. And so it wasn't a huge shock or anything like that. Even when you're in kind of these corporate giants, I think you really find your culture within the team. And that's really what allowed me to kind of navigate it. It's just those connections.
I always tell people career advice wise that uh, the company has a much lesser effect on your happiness in the job than your leadership, than your direct leadership and the people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been really fortunate to have great, not only immediate bosses, right, but the people that they then work for and kind of that set the tone. That's always been extremely positive, extremely collaborative, um, open, and just brings in great people. So I've been very fortunate. And like you said, you don't really notice maybe the overarching culture. It's really kind of what your day to day and your team looks like, and then how you work with other teams, right? That's incredibly important. So
Perfect, perfect. Going back to the FedR itself, kind of the last question.
yeah.
Uh, so the strategic planning committee and the board of directors, how are they different? They sound like they're both kind of like setting the strategy for where SIR is going.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the strategic planning committee is, you don't have to necessarily be on the board to be part of the committees, right? So that has more of an expanded network of not just board members. But there's certainly a lot of overlap, and we even after the last annual conference in May, we got together as a board team, led by the strategic planning committee leader, right, and went through kind of a whole strategic exercise. So I think there's a ton of overlap, but in terms of the committee, it's not exclusive to board members. It brings in a lot of, other folks and new perspectives too outside of the board members as well. So there's really no limit on, joining a committee, right? And then you can also be on the board. SIR is a great example of um, an organization that I was connected to, right? And has really enhanced my career. And so just being open to development opportunities outside of the day-to-day work and outside of the company, I think is always just such great exposure and a good enhancement, right, for people looking to broaden or just learn how to kind of improve in their own performance at their job. So I would just say um, it's been it's been such a treat for me, and I'm so glad that I was connected to it initially and will continue to be involved. There's so many ways to be involved. So it's been
All
great
right, Lauren.
experience.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for your time.
Thanks, Tony.